Hello, everybody. Ryan Klein here with Decode Digital Works, and I'm here with Kelly Nunez. And we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what's all over LinkedIn and social media, which is what people are calling AI slop. I don't know, Kelly, have you seen a lot of this?
Yeah, this has been getting a lot of traction and a lot of increased comments on different social media posts, especially LinkedIn and Substack that I've seen a lot of people complaining about AI slop and claiming that anything that looks a little bit like AI generated is automatically the entire thing is AI. And I think we've got some different opinions that we could share here. So excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm kind of been frustrated by it. I mean, I think this really came out June, July timeframe. It was all over our feeds in LinkedIn. It's kind of died down a little bit, coming into August. But it's almost like, people want to point fingers and there's a I'm high and mighty and that looks like AI and it's bad and I wrote this the old-fashioned way and it's good. And all these websites now have AI detectors and they've got report this as AI. I don't know. I kind of look at it as the wrong question and us running to one side where what's the point?
I completely agree. I've seen a couple threads where people have complained that they've taken papers that they wrote in college and ran them through AI detectors before AI was even, a big social thing. And it says it's 100% AI created, and they're like, "How could it be?" I wrote this in the early 2000s. I used my own hard work and research to create this. I'm proud of this, and it just gets flagged as AI. And that's, I'd say, on the one hand, it's really difficult for somebody to spent all that time creating that to just be plagued as, oh, it's AI, you didn't do it. And then on the other hand, looking at uh, there's nothing wrong with using AI. It's how you use it. But AI is just another tool, just like a calculator or a grammar check that you can use to help make your content the best that it could possibly be. It still needs to be your core idea and your core voice at the end of the day. But using it to help you kind of get to that point, narrow things down, I think is not something that anyone should shy away from.
Well, and if you actually know how to use a colon or a semicolon or heaven forbid an M dash, by definition, it's like it's all AI and you didn't create any of it.
No
What,
one has ever used M dashes before in their life. It
no,
has to be
I did a
AI.
LinkedIn post last week and I actually posted a link to the bottom that says this is how you actually can use an M dash and but I think you've been shamed now if you use them because it's a telltale. And if you have an
Mhm.
explanation of this, not that, or if you fall into the pattern of AI writing, it's all of a sudden not your original thought. And that's where I think that the big difference is, right? Where I think people are trying to avoid is content creation that is 100% AI generated, where there's an idea that somebody is trying to promote or monetize, and the person doing it actually has no idea what they're actually talking about. And I think everybody would agree that that type of content is largely useless. And we see it across YouTube, we see it across LinkedIn. I think that's fair. I think where we've gone too far is when you take somebody with a lot of experience, 10, 15, 20 years of experience, and they want to convey a message. And they use AI to gather their thoughts, to organize content, to restructure content, to apply a more articulate writing style. Maybe
Mhm.
not because they don't know how to do it, because they don't need to necessarily take the time to do it anymore, is now being diminished in the sense that it's not as valuable. But the reality is, it's probably more valuable because they've used AI as a tool to organize their thoughts that came from an idea or a series of experiences that now can be communicated much more effectively.
Yeah, it's not the usage of write me a book report about the Diary of Anne Frank. This is here are all my thoughts on this topic. Here's my experiences. Here are some stories. I'm trying to get a flow. Can you help me kind of flow out what a good paper would look like? Can you help me really have a punch in the intro, or really have a good solid conclusion statement, help me with a provocative title, things
Yeah.
like that. Definitely, AI has been extremely useful and helpful in that area.
I think this is the core of a lot of what we're doing at Decode Digital Works is that, we've written some pretty extensive prompts that allow the AI engines to interrogate our experience, collect the information, organize it in a way that's understandable and palatable. We actually do write on our web pages that we actually have an about section where we talk about how we use AI. I think it's silly if people today
Mhm.
don't take advantage of these tools. But the core behind, I think, the principles that we have is every idea is our own. Every thought
Mhm.
is based on experience and fact. And will it pass the Substack AI test? Nope. But at the same time, you also don't want me to not use spell checker, right? So I think not using these tools, you're remiss. And I think that people that are out there pointing a finger because they blindly ran a AI checker on a tool on a paper and saying this is no good are in an era of just cluelessness because you
Mhm.
have to use these tools today to be effective. And if you think doing it the old-fashioned way because you want to write it out in the wrong in the long way, it's not wrong. But buggy whips still work too, but we don't use them every day.
Yes, if you want to write things the long way, by all means, and in some circumstances that might be conducive to that person's, artistic method or the way that they're able to convey their message. But for me personally, I find AI and that conversation that we have with that prompt helps to get me into other areas within my experience or my perspective that I wasn't necessarily thinking about. It challenges me. It questions what statements I have made. It makes me think about things in a different light. And I think by the time I'm done with whatever content that I was creating, I come with different perspectives that I didn't think about going into it. So I think it's definitely useful for us at Decode.
Yeah, and as we write papers and we work with executive fellows and we talk to other folks and we do advising, um, you're going to see more and more of this. And is it going to pass
Mhm.
AI checks? Nope, and it shouldn't, right? But what the core about it behind it is that I can get in a room and have a deep conversation about the content. You and I could talk about a topic in a roundtable and have 25, 30 years of experience of situational awareness and analysis that takes what has been written and gets into the details of how it impacts a customer, what it means to you, what works, what doesn't work. AI will never do that. It'll never replace
Mhm.
the idea generation based on experience. And as people listen to this and they look at our content, I want them to know that the core thoughts and ideas are all coming from real people with real experience. And yes, it's going to have AI associated with it because that's the way we deliver content these days.
But the most important thing is any content that we submit or that we send out and publish in the world, we can stand by and have those conversations knowing that we have that amount of experience to back it up.
Yep.
There's nothing that we post that we would be ashamed or that we'd have to go back and research before we have that conversation. We're ready to go. We're ready to have it
Yeah.
now.
Well, I think as we've seen this unfold over the last couple of weeks, we wanted to kind of share our thoughts with everybody because we're going to continue to use these tools. And when we get into our roundtables with the executive fellows and advisors and folks like that, it's going to be based on content developed in these formats. Yet we're going to have meaningful conversations that are really about the experiences that bring forward. And although AI is a tool, I think everybody that's listening to this don't look at the idea of AI slop or scanning for AI as a negative thing. You have to know that the content you develop is truly yours. And don't be ashamed of using the tools because those that don't use the tools are just going to be left behind.
Completely agree.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. We wanted to get just a couple quick thoughts out there on this topic because it's got making a lot of noise. And we'll be back to you with another upcoming roundtable. Check out the executive calendar on the Decode Digital website and join one of our upcoming sessions. And we'd like to hear from you. Thanks.
See you later.